Dave Landers. I'm in my 29th year at St. Mike's. And my official title right now is Visiting Associate Professor of Psychology. And I'm also the faculty athletics rep for the NCAA. So I'm liaison between the faculty side of the house and the athletic side of the house. And currently teach 3 classes a semester. Right now in the spring semester I teach men and masculinities. I teach sports psychology every semester. And in the fall I teach theories of counseling. In the spring, men and masculinities. And I also supervise practicum this year. So it's a 2-semester class. I have 16 students who are out in the community, and then they're back in the classroom with me for 2.5 hours once a week. So.
Perfect. Men and Masculinities is one of your most popular classes on campus. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
I've been teaching this class for about 10 years, and it's become really quite popular, and I end up with a waiting list of almost 60 people. And now it's restricted to only seniors. I used to open it up to freshmen, sophomores, juniors, but as it's grown over the years, it's only for seniors now. It's the only course at the college that deals specifically with men's issues. It's also the only course in the college that has a mandated balance of the sexes. So I have 15 men and 15 women, 1 night a week for 2.5 hours. And there are no topics that are off limits. And the class comes together really quickly. It takes on its own personality. And every night there's a large group presentation, and then I break the class into small groups. And my students tell me that it's the small groups where they really learn so much about themselves and each other, because all the small groups have 3 men and 3 women in it. And it is just amazing to me what they end up coming up with. They're just submitting their projects right now, and they said, what do you want us to do? And I said, no, you do what you want to do. Take any of the topics we've covered in this class this semester, and just do something. Do it out of the box and come up with something creative. And they have. And it ranges from 6 guys who interviewed themselves talking about the locker room. These are athletes. To, and you'll see it in a bit, the bumper that's on the floor, that someone represents the different men in her life and how they have impacted her. One of the key elements in this that I like the most is they have to do a paper early on in the semester. The title of the paper is How My Father Influenced My View of What a Man Is. Those papers are unbelievable. And I actually have been collecting those papers for the last 7 years with students' permissions, with their permission. And I'm probably going to be writing a book on how fathers influence their sons and their daughters on what the image of a man is. We have 2 more classes. We're doing what's called the Fishbowl. So the men in the class all have to submit 2 questions to me by this weekend that they've always wanted to ask a woman. And on Monday night, the women will sit in the center. The men are on the outside, and I ask the questions, and the women have to answer the questions. The men can't say anything until the end. And then each man gets to say one thing about how the women have responded to the questions that the men have submitted. Then the last night of class, we do the same thing, only we reverse it, and the women submit questions they've always wanted to ask a man. So the men sit together in the fishbowl, the women on the outside. The women can't say anything. I ask the questions the women have submitted to me, and it is unbelievable. Unbelievable. So I'm really looking forward to that class.
That sounds incredible. For people who might not know, coming into school, what you can do with the degree in psychology, what are some things that you can do?
There are so many things you can do with a psych degree, because we basically have 2 tracks that you can go on here within our department. If you're interested in doing research, going on to graduate school, maybe teaching, there are a certain set of courses that you can take that will prepare you for that. So you might do individual research in our lab, where you might use rats, and you might use a couple of the other labs. We have a couple of different labs here. If you want to go the clinical route, and you want to become a school counselor, or you want to become a therapist, again, you can go on to graduate school with that, but we have different courses that you're going to take. And so depending on which track you really want to go into, we've got a number of courses you can follow. But the beauty of psychology is everybody needs to understand people. So if you're going into human resources, if you're going into management, if you're going into teaching, if you're going into athletics, if you're going into business, I mean, you name an occupation that doesn't require people to understand human beings and human nature and why do people do what they do. So we have the courses set up, so whether it's physiological psychology, abnormal psychology, theories of counseling, the practicum, social psych, cognitive, adolescent development, drugs and behavior, all of those, which you take after you take general psych. Then you take research so you understand how to be both a consumer of information that deals with psychology. An example of that would be, we read in the newspapers all the time, well, a study said. Well, if you don't know enough to ask the question, how many people in the study, who ran the study, are drug companies supporting the study, where is that coming from? So psychology gives you a really strong base to go out into the rest of the world and do anything. So,
Well, quite interesting. And finally, what is the best piece of advice you could give to someone coming into college?
it's a great question. This past weekend, I was up at Linden State College in Lindenville doing a presentation for VSAC, which is Vermont Student Assistance Corporation, and I had 200 parents. I had parents of current high school juniors, and 3 weeks ago, I had 500 parents here at a workshop that they did. And I talk about the transition from high school to college. And these are difficult times, and I talk to the parents. I'm very open and very honest with them, and I scare the crap out of some of them, which is okay. But the biggest thing is students need to learn to be themselves. And the pressure that young people have today to be something other than who they are is really pretty scary. And the other element that bothers me a lot, and I talk to the parents about this, is as a society we have a tendency to tell students that you're not quite good enough. And that the only people who really excel are the people who get all A's in school, or the stars on all the athletic teams, or the stars of the theater. What about those kids who aren't necessarily A students, but who put in A effort? And we have, as a society, we say to young people today, you're not good enough. You're not smart enough, you're not strong enough, you're not cute enough, your body isn't right. We just give messages all the time. And I really try to encourage people, both my students as well as the parents, to understand you folks are pretty good right now. And if you understand that, and if you just get to be yourself, you'll be fine. And I often say that I'm afraid that if it wasn't for J. Crew, Abercrombie and Fitch, and L.L. Bean, when students show up on college campuses across the United States, they'd be naked. Because they think, I've got to look like this. I've got to look like what the magazine or the newspaper or the television tells me I have to look like. And it takes a while before people get to understand, particularly at St. Mike's, just be who you are. And we will like you for who you are if you like yourself for who you are. That's the best message, probably. Yeah. Because again, and she said she's got someone from her family who's in Hawaii, so the Hawaiian Lei and the Hawaiian Airline. Somebody in her, I think she has an uncle who loves sushi, so she's got the word uncle here and the sushi. She's got the remote control. Several people in her family are very religious, so you've got that, and you've got something over here on religion. Her brother likes music, likes his Volkswagen. Her dad does woodwork. Another member of the family likes boats. Mm-hmm. Another one drives a big truck. And so she's got family, dad. Her dad, goes out and gardens. Grandpa. One's a big Red Sox fan. Another one has a motorcycle. One plays tennis. This one, probably the same one who works on the wood. Who's that? So, wow. Really, really interesting. Very cleverly done.